You settle now within the shelter of a Viking Longhouse, where the warmth of the hearth holds steady against the cold breath of the northern night. From the outside, the structure appears low and earthen, almost part of the land itself. Its timber frame is wrapped in turf and packed soil insulation built not for beauty but for endurance. Snow gathers quietly along the roofline, wind passing over without finding easy entry. But inside, there is warmth. There is breath. There is life settling slowly toward rest. The longhouse is built as a single extended hall, long, narrow, and deeply communal. There are no private rooms, no separating walls, only shared space shaped by function and kinship. At the center burns the hearth fire, the living heart of the household. Its embers glow low now, but they are never allowed to die completely. Fire is survival. Without it, winter cold would seep into bone and breath alike. You hear the quiet sounds it makes. Soft pine wood cracking. Occasional sparks rising. Ash settling gently along the stone ring. Above it, smoke drifts upward toward a vent in the roof, escaping slowly through the cold night air beyond. Around the hearth, the longhouse organizes itself in widening layers. Closest to the fire sleep the elders. Age has earned them the warmest ground. Their furs are layered thick, their breathing slow and steady. You can see the outlines of their forms beneath woven blankets, still, but comforted by heat, rising from the coals. Further along the hall lie the parents, guardians even in sleep. Their places are chosen not by rank, but by proximity to responsibility. If livestock stir outside, if wind rattles the doors, if children wake frightened, they are closest to respond. Children sleep along the outer benches lining the timber walls. Bundles of wool and fur surround them. Some sleep curled beside siblings. Others lie close to mothers or grandmothers, small hands tucked into familiar warmth. You hear faint night sounds among them. A slow exhale. A quiet shift beneath blankets. The soft murmur of dream speech barely formed. Above, the roof beams stretch from end to end, thick timber darkened by years of smoke. Carved marks can be seen along some beams, symbols etched for protection or remembrance. Hanging from pegs along the walls are tools resting from the day's labor. Fishing nets looped carefully to dry. Wooden buckets inverted beside the doorway. Carved ladles and spoons stored near the hearth. Each object has its place. Each place holds meaning shaped through repetition. The earth floor beneath you is packed hard from years of foot traffic. Straw and animal skins are laid in sleeping areas to soften the ground and hold warmth. Near the rear wall, storage chests sit sealed. Inside them rest winter supplies. Dried fish, salted meats, grain sacks tied tightly against moisture. Even in sleep, the household is surrounded by the results of its labor. You imagine the hall as it was earlier in the day, full of movement, voices rising and falling, children carrying water from the fjord, women turning wool at the spindle, men repairing tools near the entrance where daylight reached furthest. But now, all that motion has softened. Work has retreated into memory. Only stillness remains. The fire glows deeper red. Shadows stretch longer along the walls. Outside, the fjord lies silent beneath starlight. Pine forests stand unmoving along the slopes. Snow settles slowly along the shoreline, where boats are drawn up for winter rest. Inside the longhouse, warmth gathers like a held breath. You feel the shared presence of family, not through words but through proximity. The comfort of knowing others rest beside you, that no one sleeps alone against the vastness of the northern night. The wind brushes faintly across the turf roof. A low, distant sound. But the hall holds firm. Timber creaks softly, adjusting, enduring. A sleeper near the hearth turns gently, furs rustling. Then quiet returns once more. Time slows here. Night deepens without urgency. The embers settle lower, but their warmth still reaches outward across the hall. You drift within this ancient shelter, held by timber, earth, and shared human presence. And as the hearth breathes its final waking glow, sleep comes gradually, gently, within the longhouse where generations rest together, safe against the northern dark. You remain within the longhouse, but your attention drifts now toward the partnership that sustains the household itself. Marriage in the Viking Age is not built upon ceremony alone, but upon shared labor, shared responsibility, and shared endurance through seasonal hardship. Within this timber hall, husband and wife function less as romantic figures, and more as operational partners guiding the survival of all who sleep beneath their roof. Their roles are shaped not by rigid hierarchy, but by necessity. Each assumes responsibilities the other cannot fully maintain alone. You imagine the household waking before sunrise. The hearth fire must be revived first. If the embers have dimmed too far overnight, the woman of the house kneels beside the stone ring, blowing gently into the ash, adding strips of birch bark, then small pine kindling. Flame returns slowly, carefully coaxed back into life. Without morning fire, warmth disappears quickly. Cold creeps into hands, into breath, into the longhouse itself. So tending the hearth is never neglected. From there, domestic labor unfolds in quiet sequence. Grain stores are checked, barrels opened, wooden lids lifted. The woman measures supply levels through practiced instinct rather than scale. She knows how much grain remains for winter weeks ahead, how much can be ground for bread, and how much must be preserved. Livestock sounds stir outside the hall. Goats bleat softly. Sheep shift within their shelter. The husband, if present, steps into the frost air to tend them. He checks fencing built from split timber, ensures no predators approached overnight. Water troughs are cleared of ice. Hay is distributed carefully. If he has returned recently from trade or fishing, he also inspects stored goods. Fish catches hung to dry. Salted meats sealed in barrels. Trade items stored safely within chests. Woolcloth, carved goods or foreign metals obtained abroad. When travel pulls him away, these responsibilities shift partially to the household leader remaining behind. Marriage therefore operates as flexible labor exchange. Not fixed roles, but adaptive cooperation shaped by absence and return. Midday hours often divide their efforts further. She remains indoors, weaving, mending, preserving food stores. He may repair tools near the entrance where daylight reaches furthest. You imagine him seated on a low bench, knife in hand, carving replacement handles for farming tools, sharpening blades dulled by harvest work, mending fishing nets stretched across wooden frames, each knot tied carefully, knowing one broken line at sea could mean lost food for weeks ahead. Inside, the loom continues its steady rhythm. Wool threads stretch taut, weights hanging to maintain tension. Her hands move automatically, skill built through repetition since childhood. Clothing production never truly ends. Tunics wear thin. Socks require constant mending. Winter cloaks demand layered thickness to resist cold winds crossing the fjord. Their labor intersects frequently. He may deliver newly carved spindle tools. She may prepare preserved meals for his next journey. Communication is practical, efficient but steady. Evenings offer their quietest shared time. You see them now seated beside the hearth. The day's work complete. A wooden bowl passed between them. Stew thick with fish, herbs and root vegetables. They speak softly of resource levels. Of weather signs. Of whether winter will be long or forgiving. Future plans are discussed in these moments. Land usage decisions. Livestock breeding. Trade voyages for the coming spring thaw. Marriage becomes governance at the domestic scale. A shared leadership over survival. And as the longhouse quiets toward night, their partnership rests alongside the embers, steady, resilient, shaped by cooperation rather than spectacle. You remain within the longhouse, but your awareness shifts gently toward its youngest members, the children whose lives unfold within these timber walls. Childhood in the Viking world is not separated from adult life. It is interwoven with it from the very beginning. From the time they can walk steadily, children move within the rhythm of household labor, not burdened by it, but introduced gradually through observation and small participation. You imagine early morning light entering faintly through the smoke vent above. A pale glow filtering down through drifting ash. Children begin to stir beneath layered furs. They wake not to silence but to the familiar sounds of the household already in motion. The hearth being revived. Wood placed carefully upon coals. Water buckets moved across the floor. They watch before they act. A boy may sit beside his father near the doorway where daylight is strongest. Fishing nets are spread across wooden frames for repair. The child's hands are small, his knots uneven at first. But patience is expected. He learns rope tension, fiber texture, how wet nets must be dried before storage to prevent rot. Skill comes slowly but steadily. A girl sits nearby beside her mother at the loom. She watches wool threads drawn tight between weighted lines. Her early tasks are simple. Sorting fleece, untangling thread, passing tools when asked. Through repetition, her hands memorize the rhythm before her mind understands it fully. Learning here is tactile, practical, integrated into daily survival. But childhood is not absent of lightness. When labor pauses, play emerges naturally. You picture them outdoors now along the fjord shoreline during warmer months, barefoot upon cool stone, carving miniature boats from driftwood scraps left behind from ship repairs. They set them afloat in quiet inlets, watching currents guide them along imagined voyages. Others skip stones across still water, counting each bounce with quiet excitement. Some chase one another through pine groves where moss softens their footsteps. Archaeological discoveries confirm these moments of play. Carved wooden animals, tiny shields, bone dice smoothed from handling. Even toy boats have been uncovered, proof that imagination thrived alongside labor. Meals include children fully within communal structure. They sit beside elders and parents. They learn eating customs through observation, waiting for elders to begin, accepting portions without waste, sharing bowls passed along the bench. Food is never treated casually, and children absorb that reverence early. As dusk settles, their energy softens. They gather closer to the hearth where storytelling begins. Voices speak of gods walking hidden realms, of sea voyages beneath stormlit skies, of ancestral heroes remembered through saga. Children listen wide-eyed at first, then slower, then sleepier. Stories shape identity, courage, belonging. By the time sleep comes, they are wrapped not only in wool, but in cultural inheritance carried forward through voice. You imagine them now lying side by side along the outer benches, breathing slow, hands tucked beneath furs. The hearth glows softly nearby, and within their quiet rest, the future of the Viking household sleeps, learning already begun, even in dreams. You remain within the Longhouse, but your awareness shifts gently toward its youngest members, the children whose lives unfold within these timber walls. Childhood in the Viking world is not separated from adult life. It is interwoven with it from the very beginning. From the time they can walk steadily, children move within the rhythm of household labor, not burdened by it, but introduced gradually through observation and small participation. You imagine early morning light entering faintly through the smoke vent above, a pale glow filtering down through drifting ash. Children begin to stir beneath layered furs. They wake not to silence but to the familiar sounds of the household already in motion. The hearth being revived, wood placed carefully upon coals, water buckets moved across the floor. They watch before they act. A boy may sit beside his father near the doorway where daylight is strongest. Fishing nets are spread across wooden frames for repair. The child's hands are small, his knots uneven at first, but patience is expected. He learns rope tension, fiber texture, how wet nets must be dried before storage to prevent rot. Skill comes slowly but steadily. A girl sits nearby beside her mother at the loom. She watches wool threads drawn tight between weighted lines. Her early tasks are simple: sorting fleece, untangling thread, passing tools when asked. Through repetition, her hands memorize the rhythm before her mind understands it fully. Learning here is tactile, practical, integrated into daily survival. But childhood is not absent of lightness. When labor pauses, play emerges naturally. You picture them outdoors now along the Fjord shoreline during warmer months, barefoot upon cool stone, carving miniature boats from driftwood scraps left behind from ship repairs. They set them afloat in quiet inlets, watching currents guide them along imagined voyages. Others skip stones across still water, counting each bounce with quiet excitement. Some chase one another through pine groves where moss softens their footsteps. Archaeological discoveries confirm these moments of play. Carved wooden animals, tiny shields, bone dice smoothed from handling. Even toy boats have been uncovered, proof that imagination thrived alongside labor. Meals include children fully within communal structure. They sit beside elders and parents. They learn eating customs through observation, waiting for elders to begin, accepting portions without waste, sharing bowls passed along the bench. Food is never treated casually, and children absorb that reverence early. As dusk settles, their energy softens. They gather closer to the hearth where storytelling begins. Voices speak of gods walking hidden realms, of sea voyages beneath stormlit skies, of ancestral heroes remembered through saga. Children listen wide-eyed at first, then slower, then sleepier. Stories shape identity, courage, belonging. By the time sleep comes, they are wrapped not only in wool, but in cultural inheritance carried forward through voice. You imagine them now lying side by side along the outer benches, breathing slow, hands tucked beneath furs. The hearth glows softly nearby, and within their quiet rest, the future of the Viking household sleeps, learning already begun, even in dreams. The longhouse grows quieter as night deepens. But not all wisdom sleeps when the youngest close their eyes. Within Viking households, elders hold a presence that is both practical and deeply rooted in memory. They are no longer the primary laborers of the hall, but their role remains essential to its function. You imagine one seated near the hearth now, closest to the warmth their aging body requires. Furs are layered thick around their shoulders. Their hands rest upon carved wooden arms of a low seat smoothed by years of use. Firelight moves gently across their face, tracing lines shaped by decades of wind, salt air, and winter hardship. Their value within the household lies not in strength, but in knowledge carried forward through lived experience. They remember seasons others do not. Winters when livestock failed. Summers when fish flooded the fjord waters beyond expectation. They recall which root vegetables store longest beneath frozen earth, which herbs ease illness when steeped into broth, which trade partners honored agreements and which did not. You imagine a young mother approaching them during daylight hours, asking quietly about food preservation methods for the coming winter. The elder answers slowly, not instructing but recounting. Speaking of a winter long past when snow buried the fjord path for weeks, how dried fish was rationed carefully, how grain was stretched by mixing ground bark into flour. These memories become instruction through storytelling rather than command. Children listen too, even when not directly addressed. They sit nearby carving wood scraps or untangling wool fibers. Their ears absorb every word spoken near the hearth, because knowledge here is not written. It is spoken, repeated, remembered. Elders also guide social continuity within the household. They recall marriage alliances, birth lineages, past feuds that should not be rekindled. They advise caution when pride rises too quickly among younger generations. Their voices carry authority not from force, but from time. You imagine evening hours now as the longhouse transitions from labor to rest. An elder begins recounting a voyage taken in youth, not glorified, but practical. They speak of navigation by stars reflected in fjord water, of recognizing coastal rock formations even in heavy fog, of storing fresh water aboard ships to avoid sickness. Younger listeners lean closer, absorbing survival knowledge hidden within narrative. Even domestic crafts fall under elder guidance. A grandmother oversees weaving technique corrections. A grandfather demonstrates tool sharpening angles. Their hands move slower now, but their precision remains exact. Night deepens further. Some elders sleep earlier, bodies weary from age. Others remain awake longer, watching embers settle, listening to the breathing rhythm of the hall. Their role continues even in stillness, guardians of memory resting beside the living heart of the household. And as the aurora drifts unseen beyond the turf roof, generational wisdom settles gently into sleep, carried forward in minds that will one day speak these same lessons beside another hearth fire. Night settles fully now across the Fjord settlement. And within the Longhouse, the final rhythms of domestic life begin to soften. The day's labor does not end abruptly. It tapers, gradually yielding to rest. You imagine the household moving through its closing routines, small but essential tasks performed each evening before sleep can fully arrive. Near the hearth, the woman of the house lowers the cooking flame. Large logs are not added now. Instead, embers are spread carefully using an iron poker. Too much fire wastes precious fuel. Too little risks morning cold that seeps into joints and breath alike. She adds a final piece of slow-burning wood, watching the glow settle into steady heat that will last through the darkest hours. Nearby, cooking vessels are cleaned, wooden bowls wiped with cloth, iron cauldrons scraped of remaining stew before residue hardens overnight. Water is heated slightly, just enough to ease the cleaning process. Nothing is wasted. Even scraps are saved for livestock or future broth. You hear the quiet sound of water being poured into storage buckets, placed near the doorway where cold air keeps it fresh. Along the walls, tools are returned to their resting places. Fishing nets folded loosely to prevent tangling. Carving knives sheathed carefully. Loom thread secured so tension remains balanced until morning work resumes. These acts are performed almost silently. Repetition guiding movement more than conscious thought. Children assist where they can. A young boy carries kindling scraps to the hearthside pile. A girl gathers loose wool fibers from the floor to be reused in spinning. Even these small contributions teach domestic continuity. The Longhouse begins to change character as work fades. What was workshop becomes shelter. The scent of cooking softens into lingering warmth. Wood smoke settles low along the roof beams before escaping into the night air above. Bedding is prepared next. Straw is shaken and spread more evenly along sleeping benches. Furs are laid atop wool blankets. Animal skins brushed free of dust or frost gathered during airing earlier in the day. You imagine the soft rustle of these preparations. Quiet, unhurried. Parents guide younger children into sleeping places. Some resist briefly, still energized from stories told earlier beside the fire. But warmth and darkness work together. Their eyelids grow heavy. They curl beneath layered coverings. Breath deepens quickly. Elders settle closest to the hearth. They adjust furs around shoulders and legs, protecting joints from the chill that seeps strongest during the late-night hours. The man of the household performs final exterior checks. He steps beyond the timber door into the fjord night. Cold air meets him instantly. He scans livestock enclosures, listens for predator movement beyond the tree line, ensures boats tied along the shoreline remain secure against shifting tide. Satisfied, he returns indoors, sealing the door firmly behind him. With that act, the household is closed to the night, protected, contained, safe. Inside, voices have nearly disappeared now. Only murmurs remain. The hearth glows low, embers pulsing gently like a slow heartbeat at the center of the hall. You hear the Longhouse itself settling. Timber creaking softly as outside temperatures drop. Wind brushing faintly across the turf roof. A sleeper shifts nearby, then stillness returns. Beyond the walls, the fjord rests beneath starlight. Ships rock gently in their moorings. Water laps quietly against wooden hulls. The aurora moves silently overhead, unseen by most who sleep beneath it. Within the Longhouse, warmth gathers like a held breath. Generations rest beneath one roof, bound not only by blood, but by shared labor, shared survival, shared memory. No one sleeps alone. You feel the calm of that presence, the ancient human comfort of kinship surrounding you in the dark. The embers lower further now, their glow softer, their heat steady but gentle. Shadows stretch long across the walls. Breathing deepens throughout the hall. And as the fjord settles into complete stillness, sleep comes easily, carried by warmth, by safety, by the quiet enduring order of domestic life beneath the northern night.